Hi, everyone. As you're signing on, I am welcoming you all. We're going to give it one more minute as people sign on and then get started. Hello, hello. Seeing some names I know on this lovely Wednesday. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are based. If you want to start popping in the chat where you are, if you want to click on the chat to everyone and let us know where you're based while people are signing on, that would be great. Welcome, welcome. Give it one more minute. Fabulous. We have a lot of people from all over. We've got Turkey, California, Iowa, Boston. It's a beautiful day here in Boston, Massachusetts. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Joy McFarland. I am the marketing manager for the US and Canada for ELT here at National Geographic Learning, and we're really excited that you could join us today for this webinar. Our webinar today is titled The Power of Storytelling, and it is going to be presented by our very own Charisse Rohr. We'd love to thank you all for being here. Before we get started, I'd like to take a minute to go over a little light housekeeping. So first off, at the bottom of your screen, you're going to notice that there are several icons. The chat function, when you click on that, be sure to send your messages to all panelists and attendees, or to everyone, to ensure that the whole group can read your message. On the right, you're going to see a Q&A button. Please use this to ask the presenter questions, and we will do our best to answer as they come in and to make sure that Charisse is understanding your questions if they are able to be asked at the end. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker. So Charisse Rohr is our publisher here at National Geographic Learning, and she has more than 25 years of professional experience in the English language teaching field. Through her role as head of the National Geographic Learning editorial teams based here in Boston, Charisse has overseen the development of many internationally successful best-in-class ELT titles, including the award-winning Our World program for primary students, Imagine program for secondary, World Link for adults, and the brand new Reflect series for academic students that you will see some examples from today. Charisse is well known for her game-changing approach to material design, creating content that leverages National Geographic resources effectively to make learning meaningful, engaging, and relevant for both teachers and learners of all ages. So I am going to turn this over to you now, Charisse. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy, and thank you all for joining today. And please, if you have any questions, just go ahead and pop them in there at any time. I'm happy to take questions as we go, or we can talk at the end. So I did want to acknowledge right from the very beginning, this has been a really challenging time. Many people have felt kind of cut off from normal human interactions from their families, friends, colleagues, our students. Many of us retreated into nature as often as we could. You know, I've been spending a lot more time in the woods looking for stress relief, looking for ways to feel normal, looking for, an end in sight. And I have to say, though, that when I came across this particular photo, it made me laugh. So just so you know, I've got a quirky sense of humor. But from the teachers and administrators that I've been speaking with lately, I'm hearing a lot of concern around student motivation, their engagement, and even their persistence at tasks. So understanding what our students want, what they need, it's really foundational to what we do. And today I'd like to explore how storytelling can help students to be more focused and how it can help to motivate and make learning more efficient and memorable. And then how it can engage students and help them stick with it and gain that persistence back. When I was in the 5th grade, I had to write a report about pandas. I was actually really kind of excited about doing it. You know, I'd just gotten a National Geographic magazine a few months before at the house. And it had this article about pandas, and it had the most amazing photos of pandas in it. So I wrote my report. I pulled that edition down from where it was nestled in that long row of yellow And I very carefully cut out those pictures to paste, well, quite literally onto my paper. And that's when my mother walked in the room and saw what I'd done. She was horrified. "You don't cut up the National Geographic magazine." It was an early life lesson in the value of the magazine. And, you know, those rows of golden covers just grew over the years in our home. And I know when I go out and talk to teachers all over the world, I hear a very similar story of people in their houses having those magazines. So you can imagine perhaps how I might have felt when our company formed a new organization in partnership with the National Geographic Society. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to tell my parents. I think all of my colleagues felt the same way at the time. And when we first became National Geographic Learning, we had the opportunity to kind of pause and reflect on what that meant to us and to our business. And while I'm absolutely not a big fan of corporate mission statements, we took the time to kind of think through how this would all change us. And we decided to step away from a focus on what we do, create English materials, and we started to focus on the why. This is our why. It's what we strive to incorporate into all of our materials. And our philosophy is that we bring the stories of people and places around the world to the classroom. And that's what brings the classroom to life, with engagement and interaction. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Chimamanda. She's a TED speaker and just a wonderful storyteller. Her TED Talk is about the dangers of a single story. And she warns that if we hear only a single story about another person or country, we really risk a critical misunderstanding. And I can tell you, when I first joined an ELT publisher about 24 years ago, I can remember being told unequivocally that you cannot decouple language from culture. It seems like from the beginning of time, people were saying, if you teach British English, you must teach it within the context of the British Empire and culture, the Queen and tea time and double-decker red buses. And then, of course, when the American ELT publishers came along, you know, they jumped right in line. American English, you're going to learn about New York and baseball and Hollywood. All of the content was from a native speaker point of view. And when other peoples or regions were included, they were often represented as exotic or strange. Ooh, they eat bugs. While historically English has been used as a tool of colonialism, contemporary English has, in fact, detached from any specific cultural identity. It's become a tool linking people and cultures around our shrinking world. There's less interest in the language and culture of Shakespeare or Lady Gaga, and more on simple comprehensibility. This means National Geographic Learning materials must carefully avoid a native speaker bias or use native English speaker cultures and norms as the default, the normal in the world. We need to reflect the broader world and ensure that we live up to our philosophy. Bring those other stories in. Back in the before times, when I was out actually traveling, I was doing a professional development session at a conference in Leon, Mexico. And at the end, during the Q&A session, this woman in the back raised her hand. And I walked over and I handed her the microphone, and she started crying. And she said, "My students will never leave this valley, but you've brought the world to them." We have the opportunity to make a real difference in the world, to inspire students to make a difference, not just in their own lives, but in the world around them. As National Geographic Learning, we have a responsibility to live up to our brand, to tell the stories in which our students can learn about the world, but also see themselves, who they are, and who they can be. we really do need to have a global perspective and allow our students to see themselves as well as many other different parts of the world reflected in our materials. We're always striving to find that right balance. You know, a few weeks ago, I was speaking with a National Geographic photographer from Brazil. She's a photojournalist. And she was telling me about this recent assignment that she had been on to a remote village. And she said, you know, I was just wandering around trying to get the feel for the place and, you know, get to know some of the people and kind of help them feel comfortable around me. When this man walked up to her and he said, can you take a picture of me? It's been years since I've seen a photo of myself. Inclusivity and diversity are not a nice to have. In many ways, they are foundational to a global approach. And, you know, that story that she told really hit me because too often our students don't see themselves in pictures. And for as hard as we work to ensure that we include pictures from all over the world, it can be incredibly hard to find those pictures. Sometimes they're just not available in all the different databases and sources that we have, to the point where National Geographic Learning actually sent National Geographic photographers on photo expeditions to the Middle East, to China, to Brazil, all these different places to start capturing people in, well, we refer to it as life as lived. This happens to be one of the photos from the Middle East expedition. So here, what is this a timeline of? 100,000 years ago, 27,000 years ago, and 3,500 years ago. Can you guys put what you think it might be in the chat? Any guesses? What do you think it could be? 100,000 years ago, 27,000 years ago, 3,500 years ago. All guesses are welcome. What do you think might have happened 100,000 years ago? Writing? Okay, that's a good guess. Any other ideas? Agricultural influences, okay. 100,000 years ago, changes in how people interacted. Okay, that's a good one. Well, here, let's look at the first one. 100,000 years ago, we started telling stories. We started telling stories as a way to pass on knowledge. So how about, based on that, if that's when language is developed, what do you think happened 27,000 years ago? Any ideas? Well, here, I'll give you a hint. People started painting on cave walls. So that's when visual storytelling appeared, right? And then 3,500 years ago, well, writing was invented. It sets the stage for the great American novel. So from our earliest days as a species, we've been storytellers. Science has shown that when we listen to stories, our brains are wired to release hormones, dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins. These are the happy hormones. They help people focus, improve motivation and memory. They improve bonding, empathy, and a feeling of shared humanity. They help us feel relaxed and connected. I want you to think about this. When you tell a story, especially when you can bring in the listener's other senses into it, this amazing thing called neural coupling happens, where the activity in the storyteller's brain is mirrored in the listener's brain. The listener feels more empathetic to the speaker and sees that person as more trustworthy. What can you achieve through sharing real world stories with your students in the classroom? What can they achieve by becoming better storytellers themselves? So In the materials that we create, through the images we include and the stories we embed as the context of language learning, we help people to feel more connected. We lean into those benefits of storytelling that evolution has given us, helping students to understand not just the wider world, but also their own place in it. We help them to tell their stories and understand the stories of many diverse peoples in the planet that we share. And we believe that with knowledge comes caring. So what does all of this mean for National Geographic as a publisher? Can I tell you a story? I'd like to share with you a little bit about how we build storytelling into our materials. And I'm going to use examples from a new series of ours titled Reflect. So a couple of years ago, I came across this headline: 1 in 4 young Emirati men dropping out of school. It's the title of a study by the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research, and it blamed uninspiring school environments, lack of interesting, relevant content, and an absence of counseling for a quarter of Emirati men aged between 20 and 24 being high school dropouts, young men who will never return to education. So when our editorial and marketing teams first sat down in a room together to start planning the Reflect series, or as we called it then, the New Academic Skills series, I'm glad we worked on that title. We talked a lot about how successful another series that we have, Pathways, is, and how this new series could be different, sort of a complementing series. We knew that doing something lighter or shorter was probably a good direction. But I've got to tell you, we were really struggling with the why of this series. That is, until we started talking about these guys and the other students who need a series that really engaged them and offered them content and skills that were meaningful and relevant to their lives outside of the classroom. It's not that these students don't need academic content and skills, they do. But we needed to find that sweet spot that would capture their interest and help them stay engaged so that they could succeed. That helped us to focus on building a curriculum that ensured frequent opportunities for the students to experience success and see real-world applicable progress and build confidence. So this intentional focus on moments of success and confidence building is at the why of this series. Just like those young Emirati men, I've heard from many teachers that students feel that what they're learning is meaningless and not relevant to them. And that was before the pandemic struck. Too often recently, I'm hearing young people really despairing of all the many disasters we're facing. I mean, the pandemic, global warming, drought, wildfires, hunger, and poverty. It can feel overwhelming. I mean, how many times have I heard them say, why try? There's nothing I can do. But I'd like you to take a moment. What is this a photo of? Any ideas what that could be? What the heck is that? Any thoughts? An art studio, a house. Boy, I'd like to do either one of those. Yeah. If any of you were able to like squint in and look at the caption, it's actually an artist studio. So in this reading in Reflect, the author of Reflect wanted to show that individuals can and do make a difference. In it, the students learn about this woman, Zita Cobb, and who, like many others from Fogo Island, had become an economic refugee. She could not find work to support herself. So she left Fogo for, well, a pretty lucrative job in the oil industry. But now, after finding financial success, she's returned as a new kind of entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur. She left the corporate world to pursue her own goals, which really go beyond business success. Through her businesses, She's focusing on supporting the needs of the local culture and the environment while also creating jobs. So the photo is one of the artist studios that Zita built along with a hotel that encourage artists and other tourists to visit Fogo. She's taking the best tools from the traditional for-profit world and making this small, beautiful part of the world a better place, not just to be from, but to call home. All of us, teachers, schools, publishers, you and me, we have the opportunity to make a real difference in the world, to inspire our students to make a difference, not just in their own lives, but in the world around them. This is our moment. The things we do right now can make a profound difference for our future. At National Geographic Learning, we're not just teaching English. We take a holistic approach to language learning. It's not just words and grammar. Students are learning about the world. We share stories of role models like Zita, people making a difference in so many different ways, offering inspiration and hope, motivating students to join a growing group of problem solvers. So take a look at this reflect activity. So the topic is consider your behavior in different situations. So the first situation is, how do you feel about spending time with large groups of people? How do you behave when you're in a group? Or two, how do you feel about spending time alone? What do you usually do? I don't know, any feelings about how you feel about spending time in large groups of people? I was just crammed in with a whole bunch of people with my mask on tight. How about this? Would your answers have been different 2 years ago? Yeah, I'm not comfortable in large groups either right now. I was a lot more comfortable 2 years ago. Absolutely. Definitely different 2 years ago. Yep. Although my parents, they don't care. They're out there. They're having a great time. They're whooping it up. But social introvert have always been this way. And you have a definite advantage over a lot of people right now. So some people really preferred spending time alone. Yep, I know. Okay. So the thing is that I want to point out is that students learn best when there are opportunities for genuine communication, and giving students meaningful content that's relevant to their lives can create spontaneous moments of genuine communication inside the classroom. And students will put in the effort to use English when they have something that they really want to say, right? And of course, the students also have those advantages that are hardwired into humans, helping as they interact with stories to be more focused with improved motivation and memory. So here's some useful tips, right? Have clear, realistic goals, develop self-respect and confidence in your team, and focus on the goal and not on your own achievements. Well, the clarity of a simple list looks like a good way to learn. Having a list of useful tips and information isn't always enough. Embedding these ideas in stories about real people can make them easier to understand and more memorable. We can deliver ideas in context that help students to engage with new concepts and use the language that they're acquiring. These are, after all, English language courses, right? So here in this reading, those same skills that are presented in 3 different stories. And I'm just going to zoom in on this one. Develop self-respect and confidence in your team. So that tip is taught within the story of a group of disadvantaged women who were brought together to make a difference. They were given training and participated in some, incredibly challenging team building exercises, if I'm honest, which included having their legs tied together and having to haul a 200-pound tent up a mountain. Through these activities, these women gained respect for themselves, their teammates, and their leader. And as a conservation team, they now have income to take care of their families, to save for college. They work together as a team to protect animals and their habitat from many dangerous threats. Telling this story helps students to better understand the tip, to remember it, and to apply the language that they've learned. It's a win-win all around. So central to everything we do at National Geographic Learning is selecting content that engages and acts as a springboard for the kind of language learning and skill acquisition that we want our students to experience. So how do we choose that content? Well, first, we start with some key criteria, right? And this is the main criteria that we use. The content, it needs to be global, needs to be authentic. And when I say authentic, I don't mean pulled from the Washington Post. I mean authentic as in real world information, real people, Googleable, if you will. Relevant. It's got to be relevant to the students' lives. And my personal favorite, I love it anytime we can show the usual in an unusual way. It makes it more memorable. So let me show you quickly what I mean by these different words. So global. This does not mean exotic. It means featuring people from all over the world, doing everyday things, doing amazing, inspiring things. This reading happens to be about Andres Gutierrez. He's a man who saw some problems that people in his country, Colombia, were struggling with, and he set out to solve them and ended up creating 2 successful businesses. So we try to ensure that we include role models and topics that are relevant to learners. Authentic. We feature real people, real places. I mean, what are these people doing? Certainly looks like something my family would do, dunking somebody in the water at a wedding. Can you imagine being at this wedding party? I mean, I'm smiling and laughing just watching this and anticipating the next 3 seconds when this man ends up completely in the water. And then this is an example of relevant, right? We're including topics and skills that students need right now. This topic, it's about sports, but it's not just about sports. It's about getting the students to think about why people enjoy them so much. So there is a context, an academic context to it as well. And really, we live in an age where more content is being created and consumed than ever before. I mean, you can think of all the influencers and the bloggers and the podcasters. Everybody's out there creating content. So helping our students become confident consumers of that information is an important skill set. However, I would argue that it's even more important that we help our students to become critical consumers of that content. So for example, in this video lesson, the students are learning about when advertisers first fought germs and how those advertisers very quickly discovered that fear sells. Is that relevant today? Are there benefits to thinking critically about health claims of products? Yeah, absolutely. We're living it. Okay, now my personal favorite, the usual in an unusual way. So this photo, I love this photo. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh my God. This photo is includes Jenny the horse. She goes out for a walk every morning in Frankfurt, Germany. And I love the interaction between the baby, the horse, the dad, even the fact that the dog's like, come on, can we just go? Just that little hand reaching out. So there are some pretty fundamental, there's some pretty fundamental language that the students need to learn, right? Basic stuff. How many of you have ever taught a lesson on daily routines? Anybody? Every morning, every week. We've all had to teach those. Are they the most exciting lessons? Maybe not, but by adding an unexpected stories and images, we can help the students to stay engaged, even with the everyday topics. We can surprise them. Okay, so this one you guys actually have to help me out. Thinking, put your publisher hat on now. I want you to take a look at this picture. What is this picture a good example of? Think of all the different kinds of things, topics that you teach your students. Is there one topic that this might be good for? Love the corgi, cute corgis. Yeah, we love the corgis. So maybe this could be about pets. Anything else? What's this a good example of? Helping, okay. Present continuous and actions in the moment, good. Shopping, okay. We decided that we were going to use this in a unit. Oh, transportation's great too. That's another good one. But we decided we would use this in a unit for creativity and problem solving. You can teach an old dog new tricks. There you go. You know, oftentimes when we have units about creativity, everyone goes right for the art. Let's do art. But creativity, the creativity that we're trying to instill in our students is often the more practical, pragmatic problem solving, right? And this man has solved his problem, right? He's pulling his dog along on his roller skate. He's got, or the roller skate, good Lord, the skateboard. He's got a nice holder for his umbrella. I mean, he's got it all just kind of worked out. So the thing is, when we first became National Geographic Learning, we used to talk a lot about, oh, we want beautiful photos. And actually, no, we don't talk that way anymore. What we talk about is finding pictures that have stories that you want to learn more about, that, you know, have some real meat and depth to them. So we know that great photos can tell stories and aid in comprehension. They can get the students talking, drive meaningful communication. But how do we do that in the classroom? How do we help them gain visual thinking skills? Well, here's an example. Storytelling really isn't limited to text. Photos can tell stories. I need you guys to look at this picture here and tell me what's going on. What's going on in this picture? The shark had an itchy nose. I love it. Could you scratch just right there? My fin won't reach. Swimming with sharks. Yeah. So what if I told you that cage diving companies have really strict rules about divers keeping their bodies and cameras inside the cages? And that this is to protect not only the divers, but also the sharks, who can be injured if they ram the cage. And in fact, some sharks have gotten stuck in the cages. So if we've got a unit on behavior, which this actually is, I mean, if you think about it, how do you feel about this guy's behavior? Knowing he's breaking the rules, he's got his hand out there and his head around a great white shark. What do you think about this guy's behavior? Can you relate to it? You like swimming with sharks? Or as the person pointed out, someone is outside that cage taking the photo too. Fortunately, he's in another shark cage, so he's safe. But, you know, there's some risk-taking behavior going on there, right? Scuba diving with sharks, we still leave them alone. That's right. What do you think the guy in the back is thinking about that's all crouched down there? You just got to think, what the heck is going through their heads? Jaws, dun, 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 dun. That's right. So, these are really deceptively simple, generally open-ended questions. They're the kinds of questions that a teacher could ask in class when you come to a high impact photo to get the students to start noticing details in the image, to start making observations, to get them thinking and talking, interacting with each other and the topic, right? So practicing visual thinking skills with these images, they can actually be pretty fun in the classroom. Everyone's got an opinion and, they're making wisecracks, and it brings the class alive. And it's a pretty quick activity. But it can also hone some important skills that transfer to reading and writing, right? When they're reading and writing, you want them to notice details. You want them to make some observations. It's the same thing with the photography. Okay, how about this one? How does this make you feel? Is there an emotion when you look at this? So much cuteness. Any emotion at all? I smiled when I saw it. Yes. So happy. Okay, so how about, what if I told you, a little worried about those toenails? Wow, talk about noticing details. That's a good one. So maybe a little scared. Okay. Okay, so what if I told you that this photo was taken by Joel Sartori, and he took it for a project of his called the Photo Arc, where he's trying to photograph as many endangered species as possible. Does that change how you feel about this photo? The point is that Joel is, no, I like animals and respect their need for distance. Good. Yes. Now I want to know why this one is endangered. Yeah. Now I'm sad. Thanks a lot. Yeah, you're sad, but come on, we can make a difference. What he's doing with this photo, right? He's trying to connect with your emotions. Professional photographers don't just snap pictures, they compose them. He's taking these pictures for a specific reason, to connect with your emotions so that you do care about what happens to this little guy, right? And that's the whole part of the photo arc. And according to Serena Triaca, the potential of photography is more than simply being a reproduction of reality. The potential can be found in its ambiguity, its ability to connect with our emotions, to invoke deduction or speculation, and even fantasy. A photo can invite us to create a story, and a powerful photo can tell a story, sometimes for those who have no voice. So Joel Sartori and another photographer, Ruben Salgado, are two examples of visual storytellers that are covered in this reading in Reflect. And they're both trying to change the world, and they're inviting others to join them in their causes, showing them ways that people can make a difference. So the power of storytelling in an English learning classroom is that it drives motivation. It gives students a purpose for real communication. It makes language learning more effective and memorable, and it helps students to develop the skills they need to succeed in this century. We are a mission-driven company. Our mission is to help inspire the future leaders and to help them gain the skills they need to succeed. And when I say leaders, I mean at all levels. Leaders in the families, in their schools, in their communities. It could be at the national level. It could be at the international level. We need leaders at all levels. And at National Geographic Learning, we believe in the power of storytelling. We believe in the power of real world content and the power of our students to change the world. And this is our story. It's who we are and it's what we do. I appreciate you guys taking the time to hear my story today. Thank you. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Charisse. Guys, do you have any questions? You can put them in the chat or in the Q&A right now. And a special thank you to Gloria and Karen for all of the exciting interaction. Thank you, thank you. We'll give it another minute in case anyone has a question. Okay. Love to see series like these. Developed First Life. Thank you, Karen. I know we've had you on some panels, Karen, and I know that has definitely been recorded. So we appreciate you and all of your feedback. Charisse, we have a question from Amir about storytelling and story listening. Are they different?
That storytelling and story listening. Well, yeah. I mean, there's
a deep question.
The obvious one jumps to mind, but in the best of all worlds, they're both active, and neither one of them is passive. And if you think about it, if you're a story listener, you're recreating that story in your own mind. So those are the differences I would see between the two.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question or comment? Minute. And Karen liked that distinction, Charisse.
Yeah.
And Amir says thank you.
It was a good question, Amir. You made me think.
Painful at this time of day, guys. Oh my goodness. Well, I think that is all of the questions, but thank you all. Thank you guys for participating. And thank you so much to Charisse for telling us this beautiful story about storytelling. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.